would like to invite Dr. Ananya Gandotra over here.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Tak, for a wonderful introduction. And honestly, I think elevator is a pretty, technically heavy subject. And the way I look at it is, it has to be very well integrated with rest of the services that we are planning inside a building to have a more effective application. So the topic for today that I have chosen is effective integration and primarily focusing on elevator design. So for me, there are four key factors that I'll be taking you across. Is what is the team like? Who are the key stakeholders, primarily focusing on the elevators, and the need for effectiveness by better integration and application of process and methodology. So I'll be very briefly touching base on few of these. So the first is the team. So I'll just take you across a class A, or I would say, a really, if we are trying to build the top of the class buildings in India or international, what does the team look like? And you would realize it's a very endless set of people with different kind of specializations who are working towards making it a successful product. So for me, it's the product, which is the building or the project. So this is one of the lists that you can see, multiple types of architects and consultants, various kind of structural engineers, interior designers, and the MEP, the Vastu, the rainwater harvesting, shadow, wind tunnel, traffic, facade, signage, BOH, and the list goes on, all the way up to now the BIM managers, who we would like to split up into two parts, and finally, of course, the document controller. There in the middle sits the VT consultant. Okay? So the key stakeholders, the architect, because on basis of his drawings, majority of the buildings are being established. The liaison consultant, and some of our fellow colleagues today touched base upon how the liaison effectively can get you more FSI. Or also of late, people are struggling with the new fire codes for the fire tower and things like that. So trying to kind of get in a better fire integration into the building through elevators. And I would say perhaps the fireman's lift is right now what's been looked at, and perhaps not the evacuation lift by the owners as of now, at least in India. The elevator consultant, as TAC we have here, the elevator manufacturers, and lastly the customer, who is the end user. So we shouldn't forget the end customer, and I'll give you one small example of I've just recently moved into a 78-floor building, and I'm the end customer there, and what's been my experience there from elevator perspective, and I just like to share. Okay, so now we come to the need for effectiveness by better integration. So what I'm talking here is, where do we slip? Where are the slips happening? For example, the architect is primarily involved in coordinating the functional aspects of the building with the general building plans. And the approach may sometimes ignore the elevator efficiencies, because he's largely closely working with the client and the liaison consultant to kind of develop a good design, and of course get the building ratios, as we talk, built to carpet and so. So the client on the other side is always pressurizing the architect to get higher and higher or better building ratios. So he's working with the client, and the client may consider only system cost and under budget for VT from day one. So because he hasn't done his due diligence, so the estimation team would have just had some thought, and they would have put in a block budget without going in and figuring out exactly what the building requires. And then it's all closed, open and shut case. Once your budget is closed, you've already budgeted that much for the elevators. And this has little regard for performance criteria, and will try to fit it into their budgets. Now comes the liaison consultant, and what does he do? At the behest of the client, would want to convert the FSI to non-FSI, and might randomly give kind of opinions. Can you just take the elevator on the side? You would, that many floors into that much of square foot will save you that many, crores of rupees. So here again, he's not really regarding the customer, and I guess because that's from the grouping perspective, and destination control and things have been talked about, and of course the elevator efficiency. The consultant now may favor extreme elevator efficiencies and might think, okay, let me give it the best, and might be coming into the project very late. And what does that do? He might not be able to integrate with design or give it to the demands of the other stake, or he might just give in to the demands. So he says, okay, this is all I can afford. Can you fit it in? And he might say, okay, I'll compromise, and this is what we'll do. The manufacturer, in the spirit of competitiveness, would ignore the process, okay, and will have just little regard for the budgets. And in the end, the customer obviously expects the best in the least price. So coming to the last point that I just quickly want to make is then how can we improve? So that should be done with a proper process and methodology. And what are the key processes that we should look into? Construction of a team with all consultants brought on board together. I think this is where our Indian projects differ from international projects, is because we kind of stage, the client would say, why do you need the landscape architect now? Why do you need the VT guy now? Their job is going to start 2 years from now. Just get the architect, structural engineer, and the MEP engineer, and we should be going on the project. But that's not how the things work. You should ideally get all of them together, because the question about your sizing and things like that, a preliminary analysis which comes from the VT guy, would go in day one, and it would not come in so much later, and then you would have efficiency and performance issues. So all the consultants is very key. Then the proper client coordination with all consultants with a balanced approach. So he shouldn't be like kind of only going towards one, but he should have a more balanced approach towards cost, time, and all those kind of other factors as well. Then he has to have a proper budget and estimation with due diligence. Go into the market, look at what's available, what technology, talk to your professionals, and then come to your budgets. Then the intermediate interface of the licensed consultants is very critical. So since the whole body of consultants are working together, there has to be periodic, perhaps once a month, once or twice in a fortnight, in 3 months, you should have proper interactions, and everybody's lies and comments should be taken on board. And what is also important is intermediate cash flow and cost benefit analysis, which needs to be done, because what happens, there are in large projects, sometimes you have overruns, sometimes you haven't thought of certain things, and most of the packages go through a value engineering. And when you are doing a value engineering, like a product like vertical transportation, it has to go through a certain kind of analysis and not just a quick pick and drop. Then, of course, like platforms like this, which we are participating, technology, innovation platforms are very critical for us. And then timely vendor interfaces with the client's team. So it should not just be waited on to the tender stage, and then only you talk to the VT guy, the manufacturers. You should have interactions way earlier. And you should have a consolidated and a transparent tendering process. To my mind, it is very critical. Safe execution and proper quality and process-driven commissioning, and third-party audits and consultant interface till handing over. So it's not like you've designed, okay, now I can just do my own thing. I'll just work with the manufacturing people, and the consultants, they're not really required. So you need them, in fact, till the final audits are done. And of course, the last, quality checks and proper O&M. And as far as this is the last statement that I would like to make today is the methodology. So what we are saying is a statistical simulation of the elevator performance is important. And from the developer side, I would say, as I explained earlier, cash flow modeling, and because that would kind of give us the positioning of the company with respect to our cash flows, to how much we are going to be spending on each and every item that's going to go into the building. And of course, the cost benefit analysis for selection of your elevator. So that has to be properly thought through. And thank you.
I mean, she did say that she'll be talking about her elevator experience. You can just spend 2 minutes and tell us.
So, so I just recently moved into a 78 floor building. There aren't very many in Mumbai, so you can take your guesses. I'm not going to name the developer, neither the building. And I kind of get my keys and I reach and I see there is no panel there. And then I'm told the panel breaks every time somebody moves in. And here I am, like, moving in, and any and everybody who has to come up comes down, because they have a panel, of course, on the ground floor. But when they have to go down, I have to pick up my phone and call for the elevator. Okay? And we're talking of, projects which has huge amount of spend on it from customer side who's waited for years for that thing. And then you kind of, and I, kind of say, how did the building get its OC? And I start making the little noise and okay, they work faster and they kind of get the panel in. And I would say that these kind of things shouldn't be just the developer side. I think it's a general responsibility of the people to ensure that when the customer is getting into the apartment, whether it be the elevator manufacturer, I wouldn't call the consultant responsible for that, but these kind of things go a very long way. And as rightly said, in many of the forums that we were having today, it's the lifeline. Like today I had to go, all the elevators on that floor were not working. And I'm like panicking, what's happening? How am I going to go down, these many number of floors? So again, you make a phone call and in tall buildings, your phone can just conk off, it doesn't go, it's not effective. And it's quite a nightmare. So my say is that however much you spend, the elevator, besides, of course, your apartment and the toilets and everything, it's the biggest important factor that the person will have from comfort. Meaning, if they are operating like this in a regular scenario, what would it be in an emergency scenario is, just food for thought.